Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Criticism and challenges in narrative discourse analysis. Narrative discourse analysis provides profound insights into how individuals and groups convey meaning through storytelling, but it faces criticism and challenges that researchers need to navigate. Issues like subjectivity in narrative interpretation, methodological constraints, and limitations in scope and depth pose significant challenges. This discussion explores the main critiques of narrative discourse analysis, focusing on the inherent subjectivity in interpretation and the limitations of narrative analysis compared to other discourse analysis methods. 1. Subjectivity in narrative interpretation. Narrative discourse analysis is inherently subjective, presenting challenges related to the interpretation of narratives and potential biases. Understanding these challenges is crucial for researchers aiming to achieve reliable and meaningful interpretations. Here's a look at some of the key issues. 1. Subjectivity in narrative interpretation. Narrative construction and perspective. Narratives are constructed by individuals who bring their own perspectives, biases, and motives to the storytelling process. This means that narratives are inherently subjective, and the storyteller's viewpoint influences what is included or omitted in the story, which can affect the way narratives are interpreted. Researcher bias. Researchers analyzing narratives bring their own perspectives, experiences, and theoretical frameworks to the analysis, which can influence their interpretations. This subjectivity can lead to selective attention to certain narrative elements while overlooking others, thereby impacting the analysis. Cultural and social context. The interpretation of narratives is deeply embedded in cultural and social contexts. A researcher's own cultural background and social norms can influence their understanding and interpretation of narratives, potentially leading to misinterpretation of stories from different cultural or social backgrounds. Ambiguity and polysemy. Narratives often have ambiguous or multiple meanings, which can lead to varied interpretations. Different researchers might interpret the same narrative in different ways, depending on their perspectives, theoretical frameworks, and the specific research questions they bring to the analysis. Ethical considerations. Ethical challenges arise in narrative interpretation, especially regarding confidentiality and the respectful representation of participants' stories. Researchers must navigate the balance between maintaining the authenticity of narratives and ensuring the privacy and dignity of those who share them. 2. Addressing subjectivity and bias. Reflexivity. Researchers should practice reflexivity, being aware of and transparent about their own biases and how these may influence the interpretation. This involves regularly reflecting on one's positionality and considering how it shapes the research process. Triangulation. Using multiple data sources, theoretical frameworks, and analytical methods can help to mitigate the effects of bias. Triangulation enhances the credibility and validity of interpretations by providing different perspectives on the data. Peer review and collaboration. Engaging in collaborative research and seeking peer review can provide alternative perspectives and help identify biases in the interpretation process. Discussions with others can bring out overlooked aspects of the narrative and offer more balanced interpretations. Member checking. Sharing interpretations with participants, when appropriate, allows them to confirm or challenge the researcher's analysis, ensuring that interpretations align with participants' intended meanings. Thick description. Providing rich, detailed descriptions of the narrative context, including the storyteller's background, the social environment, and the circumstances surrounding the storytelling, can help readers understand the basis of the interpretation and assess its validity. Subjectivity is an inherent challenge in narrative discourse analysis, but it also offers valuable insights into how people construct meaning. By acknowledging and addressing the subjective nature of narrative interpretation and the potential for bias, researchers can enhance the rigor of their analyses and produce interpretations that more accurately reflect the complexities of the narratives they study. 2. Limitations of narrative analysis. While narrative analysis is a powerful tool in discourse analysis, it does have certain limitations, particularly when compared to other forms of discourse analysis that focus on non-narrative discourse forms. These limitations arise from its scope, depth, and methodological constraints. 1. Scope of narrative analysis. Focus on personal experience. Narrative analysis often emphasizes personal narratives, which can limit its applicability to broader social, political, or institutional discourses. This focus might miss the nuances of non-narrative discourse, such as argumentation or procedural texts that don't fit into the personal storytelling framework. Text-centric approach. Narrative analysis usually centers around textual or spoken narratives. It might not fully capture visual, performative, or digital discourses, where narratives might not follow traditional storytelling conventions. Overemphasis on coherence. A lot of narrative analysis focuses on coherent stories, which might overlook fragmented, incomplete, or unconventional narratives that don't fit into standard storytelling structures. Cultural bias. Since narrative structures can be culturally specific, there's a risk that narrative analysis might impose culturally specific frameworks on stories that don't align with them, potentially misinterpreting or oversimplifying narratives from other cultures. 2. Depth of narrative analysis. Simplification of complex realities. Narratives often simplify complex realities into a linear sequence of events, which can oversimplify multifaceted issues. This reduction might lead to overlooking the complexity of social phenomena that don't fit neatly into narrative structures. Subjectivity and interpretation. While subjectivity can provide depth in understanding personal experiences, it also introduces a high degree of interpretation that can lead to biases. Narrative analysis relies heavily on the researcher's ability to interpret, which can vary significantly from one researcher to another. Limited generalizability. Because narrative analysis often deals with specific, personal stories, it may not always lead to generalizable findings. While it offers deep insights into individual cases, its application to broader populations may be limited. 3. Methodological constraints. Time-consuming. Narrative analysis requires detailed reading and interpretation, which is time-consuming and may not be suitable for analyzing large datasets efficiently. Reliance on narrative availability. The method depends on the availability of narratives. Not all forms of discourse are available in narrative form, limiting its applicability to certain types of discourse. Data collection and ethics. Obtaining personal narratives requires careful ethical consideration and data collection techniques, which can be challenging and time-intensive. Narrative analysis is a powerful method within discourse analysis, offering unique insights into human experience and storytelling. However, its limitations in scope and depth highlight the need for complementary methods that can capture the richness of non-narrative discourse forms and provide broader, more comprehensive analyses. Acknowledging these limitations helps researchers choose the most appropriate methods for their research goals and ensures a more holistic understanding of discourse. Conclusion. While narrative discourse analysis is invaluable for uncovering the layers of meaning in personal and cultural storytelling, it faces notable challenges related to subjectivity and methodological limitations. The inherent subjectivity in narrative interpretation can lead to biased analysis, influenced by both the narrator's and researcher's perspectives. Additionally, the method's emphasis on personal narratives can limit its applicability in broader discourse contexts. Despite these challenges, narrative discourse analysis remains a powerful tool when applied with methodological rigor and reflexivity, allowing researchers to explore the complexities of storytelling and its impact on identity and social dynamics. By acknowledging and addressing these limitations, researchers can enhance the validity and reliability of their narrative analyses, ensuring meaningful insights into the power of narratives in shaping human understanding. Frequently asked questions. Why is subjectivity a challenge in narrative interpretation? Subjectivity in narrative interpretation arises because narratives are constructed from personal perspectives, and researchers bring their own biases to the analysis. This can affect what is included in or omitted from the narrative and how it is interpreted, leading to selective attention to certain elements and varied interpretations. How can researchers mitigate biases in narrative interpretation? Researchers can mitigate biases by practicing reflexivity, employing triangulation, seeking peer review, engaging in member checking, and providing thick descriptions of narrative contexts. These methods enhance the rigor of narrative analysis by addressing the potential for bias. What ethical considerations arise in narrative interpretation? Ethical challenges include maintaining confidentiality, ensuring the respectful representation of participants' stories, and balancing authenticity with privacy. Researchers must navigate these issues to protect participants' dignity and ensure responsible interpretation. What are some limitations of narrative analysis related to its scope? Narrative analysis often focuses on personal narratives, which might limit its applicability to broader discourses like argumentation or procedural texts. It also tends to emphasize textual or spoken narratives, potentially overlooking visual or digital discourses. How does cultural bias affect narrative analysis? Narrative structures can be culturally specific, and imposing certain frameworks on culturally diverse narratives can lead to misinterpretation or oversimplification. This bias can distort understanding by applying culturally inappropriate standards. Why might narrative analysis oversimplify complex realities? Narratives often condense complex realities into linear sequences of events, which may not fully capture the multifaceted nature of social phenomena. This reduction can lead to overlooking the nuances and intricacies that don't fit neatly into narrative structures. What challenges does subjectivity present in narrative analysis? While subjectivity can offer in-depth insights into personal experiences, it also introduces a high degree of interpretation, leading to potential biases. Interpretation varies among researchers, which can result in inconsistencies in analysis. How does narrative analysis affect generalizability? Due to its focus on specific personal stories, narrative analysis often lacks broad applicability and may not provide findings that are generalizable to wider populations. It offers deep insights into individual cases but might not extend to broader groups. What methodological constraints limit narrative analysis? Narrative analysis is time-consuming, requiring detailed reading and interpretation. It also relies on the availability of narratives, which may not always exist in certain discourse forms, and data collection requires careful ethical consideration. How can understanding the limitations of narrative analysis benefit researchers? Acknowledging the limitations helps researchers choose appropriate methods for their research goals and ensures a more holistic understanding of discourse. Combining narrative analysis with complementary methods can capture the richness of non-narrative discourse forms and provide comprehensive analyses.